on vacation. I just want to do a bit of a test. I don't know if we have Dr. Oji online. Dr. Oji, could you unmute your mic if you hear me?
Yes, good afternoon.
Excellent to have you online. Kelly, are you there?
Yes, are you hearing me?
Excellent. So, as a bit of an introduction, my name is Cecilia Bernardo, for those of you who I have not met yet, and I'm country manager at the Eiti International Secretariat. I'm also on the communications team with my colleague Ines, who is our social media at the International Secretariat, as well as Kinsey, who is an intern from the Burkina Faso National Eiti Secretariat. As of a background, I was at the Trinidad and Tobago Eiti National Secretariat before joining the international one. I was alongside Vanessa Radoy from Tobago, who should also be on this call. Some housekeeping matters before we start. Asking that you keep your muted. To mute your mic just below the video display, you will have a microphone, and when it turns red if it's muted, and it will unmute your mic. To access the video, you just click on the camcorder next to the mic icon, and the green bar when it's on. To the hand, if you have a question, there's an icon of a hand. Just click if you have a question if you would like to make a comment. This webinar is strengthening peer learning in communities across implementing countries. Sometimes we have questions, and we don't necessarily have a forum to ask those questions. And also to share best practices in terms of what you are doing in your country. So the format of this webinar will be, we will have by Dr. Oji on communication strategies. That will last about 10 minutes. Then we will have a Q&A session for about 15 minutes. And Kelly from the World Bank will present on effective social media management. And then we'll have another Q&A for about 15 minutes. And then our National Secretariat in turn will close the webinar and know about next steps. So, Nima, is there any housekeeping matter that you wanted to highlight before we start?
I guess that's all. Thank you.
Okay. So, it works at the World Bank and is the host of this webinar. So,
hi, Gisela. This is Eiti.
Hi, Eiti.
I have to make a note that video is kind of slowing things down on our end, so we can hear you only in short bursts. So maybe we all can just do audio, just in the interest of being hear everybody.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I have now my video, so that helps with the connection.
I hear you much better. Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that intervention, Eiti. Without further ado, I would like to hand over to Dr. Oji, who will teach us on communication strategies. Dr. Oji? So Oji, will be connected on two.
Yeah, that's better now.
Dr. Oji, we can't hear you clearly because you are connected on two, maybe both on your phone and on your computer. So if you stop one of them, close off the webinar, and one of those items, we should be able to hear you a bit better. You could yes, okay.
Now?
It's slightly better.
Next,
from one of your...
You don't have exactly. There is only one computer now.
Okay. It is better. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, but it's, the voice is not very clear. It's very, can't hear it very well. Is it possible to get... Hearing me now?
Yes, but still hear a bit of an echo. Hi, Kelly, are you online?
Yes, I'm online, but do I call you? Do you call me by phone? It's not clear at all from here.
Kelly presents in the interim. Are you there?
Hello, Gisela, can you hear us?
Yeah. So, Dr. Audrey, I'm just asking, while we sort out calling you on the phone, I'm just going to ask Kelly to present on Kelly and Arti to present on social media. Back to you in the second half of the webinar. I hope that's okay with you.
That's perfectly fine, Gisela. Hello, everybody. My name is Arti. I am the Online Communications Officer for the World Bank's Energy and Extractives unit. I work with Kelly Alderson. She is the Communications Officer for Extractives, and she handles much of the EITI work in DC. Kelly just dropped off the call, but she'll be right back on in a second. But I can start by giving you an overview of what we both do and present our communication strategy, both traditional and then online. So as we have very complementary roles, Kelly and I, she handles much of the day-to-day interaction with a lot of you, and then with stakeholders, with donors and things like that. Where I come in is I handle all of the online products and assets. So our Twitter channel, Facebook, a lot of the feature stories, photos, videos, anything that it goes on the external website comes under my purview. And today we are going to talk specifically about social. Hi, Kelly?
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know I'm back on. Sorry, I dropped off in an effort to let our colleague from Nigeria be better heard, but it didn't work very well, so I'm back.
I just introduced us, Kelly, and I told the group what we do. So if you want to kick off the presentation, please go ahead.
Sure. Well, thanks so much, Arti, for jumping in there. As you know, I'm the communications officer for Extractives at the World Bank, of which EITI is a large part of our portfolio. And I already told you, she specializes in online and social media for many areas of the World Bank, not just extractives, but energy, environment, among others. So she has a very wide expertise in the area. I just wanted to start over a few basic aspects of our social engagement in the hopes that it will help all of you in your national secretariats in your implementation of EITI, given that one of your main goals and missions is to disseminate the information from EITI to your stakeholders throughout the country. And we use a few examples from the World Bank experience in the dissemination of our materials to our constituents to help guys. hopefully you can all see the presentation here. It's pretty basic. At least it begins quite basic. I'm not sure where you all are on social media since there's so many of you, and each country that is implementing EITI is at very different stages. So we'll start basic. But number one suggestion that we had for social media is first to define and understand your audience. And I'm sure many of you have already gone through this exercise, but to us, social media is really wherever people gather a media in a social manner. So it doesn't have to be just the things that you typically think of as social media, like Facebook, Twitter, but anywhere where people congregate and socialize, which more or less means they comment about media. So if you're in communities, that's television. People, congregate around a television and they comment and share. That would be social media too. But that you can generate a discussion and feedback and sort of dialogue around a media piece, it would be what we would consider social media. So again, the most important thing is for in each country to define our most popular mediums for social interaction and feedback around this messaging. And the strategy that the World Bank has taken over the past few years to make our social media have more impact is really to devote resources and to plan for fewer outcomes. So, what this means is we don't try to spread resources too thin, but we really do try to pinpoint where audience is being receptive. We listen to our audience very carefully, which is a big part of social media. It's not just pushing messages out, but it's tracking how are people listening to those messages. Are they clicking on those messages? And Arti will go over in a few more slides how we closely monitor and measure how people are using the social media we send out. But that gives us an idea of where to better our resources and to do fewer, bigger, and better. So choose a few large launches or a few main messages, put those out in a strategic way. And there are so many tools out there today, like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, YouTube, SoundCloud, and we have more details on those in the next slides. But again, it's defining in your audience, in your country, which is the most popular. And of course, as always, we try to visualize and the elements of our message with tools like visualization, and those are very popular with our audience, and also make them mobile friendly so that people can see them on their iPhones or whatever it is that people are using in your audience. And go to the next slide. I'm not sure how, if I had or if someone on.
Yeah.
Oh, up here. Okay. There we go. And this to the right might be a little overwhelming in all the social media channels that exist out there, but it emphasizes the message that there are so many possibilities in social media today that really pick a few that are most popular in your audience. Don't get overwhelmed by saying, oh, we want to try all these new different applications, these new channels. Really focus on what your audience is most using. And on those, one of the most important things, I wouldn't say the most important thing though, is consistency and the expertise of your message. So short messages and consistency, not to just send out a message once in a while, to do them regularly. And we also find at the World Bank, one of the strategies that we've been using, because the World Bank is very large, and themes across different parts of the World Bank, similar to EITI, you all are implementing in many countries across the world, which have different local contexts. We do have some common themes in those countries, because we try to pick a few messages. So it's not just the vehicle of dissemination, which would be the outlet. Is it, Twitter? Is it YouTube? But also, what are the few main messages that are most important to your audience and your audience is listening to most, and really focus on those. So again, we would highly recommend picking just a few channels that are popular, and focusing on those few top messages that you really want to get out, and then those common themes will have most resonance, which is what we do in the World Bank. Every area has its own topic or its focus, but the World Bank as a whole does have some common themes, ending poverty, boosting shared prosperity. These are our twin goals. So we like to coordinate amongst ourselves, and we echo those sort of general messages among the different areas too of the bank. I think that it would be a common commonality with EITI and all the national secretariats in the different countries. Let me again, if also want powerful images, they're very, very popular in all the work that we're doing and we're sending out. Those and blogs. So a few examples of those on our next slide. Here, let me. So what some of our social posts look like. I know that some of you are more advanced than others in the EITI countries. We did say a lot of you are on Facebook, a lot of you are on Twitter. I thought that this practical sort of 101 on what does the really impactful social post look like would be very helpful to you guys. So I'll turn it over to Arti here, who does a lot of the posting of our social media.
Sure, thanks, Kelly. I think what I want to do is just run through quickly good posts, the most popular sites, and then what you could do to tailor content to your own business needs, and also how to watch how those posts are doing and incorporate that lesson back into your social strategy. So just a few examples of let's say a good tweet, a good LinkedIn profile, a good Facebook post, and video. And then what is actually very popular in a lot of countries now, which is WhatsApp, which is a texting service that acts a lot like a regular text messaging service, except you can send videos, you can send voice memos, photos. So it acts as a good social platform that operates on a much lower bandwidth than a few of these other platforms. So with good social posts, even before we talk about a good social post, I think the first thing to think about is what really works in a specific market, in a specific geographical region, or with a specific demographic that you're looking to target. We hear that Twitter, Facebook, YouTube are extremely popular. LinkedIn follows very closely on the professional level, where you want to connect with your peers, other stakeholders, and have a conversation with your equals on a specific specialized topic. But what we recommend is to just isolate one very performing social media platform in your country, and then focus on just that. You can always widen your horizons later. So a good tweet, for instance, and I'm going to just go over to the next slide.
Sandy, I'm just going to ask you to mute your mic. Thank you.
Go over to the next slide. I want to show you, and you must have noticed, the common element in all of these examples you would have seen is the social aspect, which is basically a multimedia component, a video, a photo, something, a call to action with a photo with the little boy in the tweet. What that means really is that however engaging your tweet or your Facebook post is, you always think of a multimedia component to accompany that message. So always keep that in the back of your mind. A photo or a video is just excellent add with your social message. So let's just go through a lot of the popular ones. So with Twitter, for example, and I'm sure a lot of you know, it's 140 characters. What it basically makes you, almost forces you to do, is distill a message down to what is most important for your audience to know. And in doing that, I would say, let's action. So our current guidance right now is to energy poverty, and we use that as a hashtag. So it's a very popular hashtag now in the Twitter world, and we always have a call to action, something that people can do or should be doing in the tweet. So we say, read this story, or let's end energy poverty. And this comes right after the message. So have people share, comment, interact with you by asking them to do what something is. A hashtag, for instance, is something that it's almost like a tag or a topic that is popular. So right now, yesterday, for instance, hashtag National Coffee Day was extremely popular here because it's National Coffee Day here. What it means is there's the symbol hashtag in front of the words National Coffee Day all bunched together, and it's something people use as a common sign or common phrase to link together all of these posts. So if you search by the symbol, the number symbol, and then National Coffee Day, you would see all the posts that were tagged in the Twitter world. A way to connect all of these messages in sort of one bucket. What we need to do right now is to mimic that formula. So I would say a good hashtag, a great photo or a video, and the photo or video does not have to be professional grade. This is what I always tell people. It's something you want people to connect with. So our image of something that is powerful, which conveys depth of feeling, of emotion, that is something you want on your Twitter. And that, because 140 characters, hashtags, links are very important. Link to a story that you're writing, link to a press release, link to a website. But those take up space as well. So always keep in mind that images and links take up extra space. So it will cut into your 140 character limit. Keep that in mind when you play around with your tweets. With Facebook, for instance, you have a lot more room to play. So your message can be longer. It can be a paragraph, and then you should definitely also have a visual element with it, a video, infographics, photo, again with a call to action. We hear that we went full circle and we came back to where videos are starting to gain popularity again, and YouTube over here, for instance, is very popular for that. Keep your videos informative, and as I always tell Kelly, keep talking heads out of your video as much as possible. What this means is people want to see other people like them on videos. They don't want to see officials or people in capacities that they don't sort of understand talking about technical things. So keep it short, maybe to 3 minutes or less, and have people whom they can connect with in the video. If you are, if the video is in a local language, always think about subtitling the video so that people who, for instance, understand French actually understand what's going on in the video. Another thing I would say with videos is at the very end, if you have social media, another social media channel, if you have a Twitter account, always advertise your handle. Your handle basically is your name on Twitter. So if our name, for instance, is WBG_energy, so that would be our handle. So always tag our handle at the very end of the video so people can go follow us on Twitter and see what else we're doing. The other I would recommend is to show shots of relevant shots of in the field, people working, people going about their daily activities. Just make it colorful and engaging. Instagram is again something that's popular here. I don't know if any of you use it at all. And this is something that's nice to have. It may not be the best to start with. This is just a great platform to share photos, tag them again with relevant topics. So basically, I would tag a photo of this rainy morning here as rainy, gray, dull, and then everybody else who's tagged photos rainy, gray, and dull can see these photos. Platform to share, and Instagram now also lets you share videos, very short video clips, about 6 to 10 seconds of video. So again, you have that option as well. But I highly recommend using that as a ancillary something that you can after you have tried one of the others. A lot of other countries, I'm from India, so I know that WhatsApp for instance, is extremely popular, and people use that actually as a social networking medium. And I encourage you to try that as well. You can set up groups of beneficiaries, of clients, of people you want to communicate with, and send them messages, images, videos, same as you would send online. What this lets you do is not be dependent on a Wi-Fi connection or a high bandwidth sort of requirement. You could do this on a low bandwidth over WhatsApp. Highly recommend that as well. So there are a few we find very successful over here. For instance, in China, Youku is the equivalent of YouTube over here. They have Weibo, which is the equivalent of Twitter. So whatever works for you in your country, I highly recommend that out. Go to the next slide. I'm not able to do that over here. Nima? Okay. So this is great. We've done this. We've established a social media channel. We've sent out tweets, with photos, but then what? The point of all of this. So the thing I think is very, very important is to measure how you're doing all of this. The good Twitter and Facebook and a lot of other channels is that they have a native analytics feature. What that means is within Twitter and within Facebook, these channels let you measure how each tweet has done or how you've done over the past week or the past month, for instance. So with every tweet, you can see how many people shared it. In this slide, you can see it's saying your tweets earned 50.5K impressions over 28 days. What this means really is that my end poverty tweet showed up in 50,000 Twitter accounts over the past 28 days. Whether or not people read that tweet is a very different thing. So impressions does not mean that 50,000 people actually read my tweet or engaged with it. What shows engagement is how many people retweeted my tweet or if they favorited my tweet. So what that means is if they my tweet and they think it's relevant and it's meaningful, they would share that with their network. So if, let's say, I'm friends with President Jim Kim on Twitter, and if he thought my tweet was meaningful, he shared on his network, and his followers, people who follow your tweets are your followers. They all see those tweets, so it would exponentially increase the reach of that message. This is ideally what you want. So although how your tweet is doing, how your Facebook post is doing, on the screen on the right is analytics site. So this is very easy. If you set up a business page or a page for your own activity on Facebook, it will give you an option within Facebook to track. Even on the same on Twitter, if you just go as you're saying, if you Google analytics and Twitter, it shows you the native site where you can actually track it. This is all it's all housed within the Facebook and Twitter sphere, so it is easy for you to find it. This is just one other step you will have to take. So all how your tweets and how your Facebook posts are doing, and incorporate those lessons into your strategy. So for instance, you might notice that a tweet that you had a great photo with was shared about a dozen times, and then a tweet that you had which was great on content probably didn't do as well because there was no visual element. So always incorporate a visual element to your Twitter, to your Facebook post, to your social reach. So both of these, as with a lot of other social channels, what they let you do also is to functionality of your work, and this is another step you can take. Be just tweeting and posting on Facebook. If you want to get really specialized, you can do things like geo-targeting a tweet. So, for instance, if your tweet is relevant to an audience in the Horn of Africa, you can actually choose to only select accounts from people let's have 1,000 followers. Let's assume about 200 of them are registered from countries in the Horn of Africa. Your tweet would only show up in their accounts. You can make that happen. If you want to send out a tweet in, let's say, Chinese, and you wanted to show up only in China, you can geo-target China in that sense. If you wanted to show up at 10 a.m. in China, you can actually choose the time and schedule it to 10 a.m. So there's a lot of these functionalities you can play with, but start basic, start small, and then make sure you devote regular resources to your. And I think that should be a good place for me to stop.
Okay, excellent, Aarti. Thank you very much. I saw Nima has written a message in the chat. If you have any comments or questions, please feel to type in the chat box. We can then, but what I would like to suggest is, Dr. Oji, are you online? Online, maybe we could have your presentation now and group all the questions afterwards.
Yes, I'm ready, and I hope you're getting me now.
Excellent. So, I apologize that you are not able to interact with presenters as we would have initially liked, but just I could indulgence for a couple more minutes, and then we'll take all the questions towards the end. Thank you, Oji.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I'm pleased to be with you, and greetings from Abuja. I'm expected to speak to us on the importance of communication strategy in the EITI process. Of course, here in Nigeria EITI, we joined the EITI in 2003, and the implementation in 2004, and by 2007 we had a specific law. By 2005, we already designed a communication strategy, because the country information oil and gas sector was completely in opaque, not in the public domain. So there was need for people what the EITI was all about, what is set to achieve, why it's necessary for our country, why the citizens need to support that process. It therefore was envisaged and intended to be a document that will provide for the kind of concepts and integrated messages that will do to suit our different audience and holders who probably will need a participation in the whole process. So, key for us to design a kind of plan that will be suitable for the EITI reports that shows the media and the stakeholders, other people involved will be able to use that information effectively for both relations and engagement with the process. It was also for the communication strategy to be a man that will focus on how we can get citizens' participation and reforms, institutional and corporate buy-in into the process. So it's these three issues were supposed to be what the communication strategy that Nigeria evolved in 2005 was supposed to achieve, and it did achieve that substantially. The importance of communication strategy in communication is so critical. It helps you is be a benchmark from where you can design effective annual work plans. It's important for use in analysis of stakeholders. With strategy, you are able to identify and do an in-depth stakeholders analysis to know what kind of information the civil society will need, the kind of thing that you need to disseminate to the media, to government, to companies, to holders like the legislature, and to the internal audience of the EITI. The internal audience of the EITI, like the MSGs, they work in the secretariat, and those you need to use effectively to achieve the whole objective. The strategy helps to provide clarity and guidance on effective resource management. Funds are not usually very available for the work you would like to do, but with a communication strategy, you are able to plan effectively how you will use resources in terms of human and material resources to achieve specific objectives. It's important because you can use a communication strategy to be able to prioritize the kind of choices you make on communication issues that you would like to deal with, the channel you want to use, the tools, and even the style and rules of engagement that you probably want to employ. It helps to identify the potential risks, and those risks can be mitigated. It's also essential for monitoring and evaluation. For us in the we have used communication strategies to deal with these issues effectively in the last 14 years that we have implemented the EITI. I hope.
No.
Yes, fine. If you look at the next slide, who needs the communication strategy? We'll see a kind of some kind of story. A picture of Eiti wearing the green behind the screen, and all the entities and agencies we deal with line up for information. The communication strategy will be useful to define kind of information. This cover. But who needs the communication strategy more? One, communication officers. A officer without a strategy is simply an accident looking for a place to happen, because there won't be any rational guide on what you are doing. Nonetheless, of all EITIs, we recommend that communication strategy should be in place. The society that engages on the EITI process needs guided with a communication strategy on the issues that they take up with those entities, but whether it's government or companies, especially issues of remediation, trying to address the issues by our report. Communication strategy and companies and others. So, communication strategy is a very important document that helps a communication team, like we have in Eiti, to be able to deal with issues in a specific and very effective manner. The Nigerian media is reputed to be one of the freest in Africa, and very robust, very diverse. Most of the media that we deal with here are private media. There's the government media that is surviving. The competition is quite stiff, so you need to have a robust communication strategy to be able to deal with this type of media environment. I need the next slide. That's now. How exactly can one? What are the basic steps would one trying to formulate a communication strategy? What basic points that must be noted? I will itemize them here in the article. Before you develop a communication strategy, there is need to be very clear in your mind the aim of what you want to achieve, and they need to be clearly outlined. The second that should be noted is to analyze the situation that you are trying to deal with. In what we call it information need assessment. You need kind of scoping study on the information needs of specific audience that you are dealing with to be in a position to all those into consideration in formulating a strategy. Now you need to define the objectives of each step you take and the kind of components of the strategy you are trying to develop. Then to audiences In the East, you have the companies, you have the civil society, you have the government as key. Now, these three are you targeting at? At any time, you need to be very clear and help you in designing a strategy. Number, you need to determine the information needs and messages each of these key stakeholders will require. And the duration that this kind of information will be, because an information that you are using at the stage of your might change because of development. So number 5 will help you to be much more dynamic in designing that process. 6, formulate an agenda, media strategy, and plan.
Yes, we're on, and you have approximately 2 to 3 more minutes.
Oh, let me just say that the next point is so clear, and I think you have the presentation. I have listed the basic steps you need to take, and one of them that we need to put into place is number 12, monitoring and evaluation. Okay, be able to appraise what you have done. Let me quickly rush to the next. What we get, the communication strategy that serves for a compliant country may not serve for a country that is just signing up to the HCI process. Signing up stage, preparation stage, disclosure stage, dissection stage, and validation. We have listed carefully all the other stages that might be very necessary. A communication strategy addresses key very areas: awareness, education, insight analysis, and action for reform. I do not have time to explain this. Next, this is actually the meat of the whole process. You look at the slide, we have 90 communication and outreach strategies. When Eiti began in Nigeria, you could see the vehicle, the traffic, like a confused situation. How do you design a media strategy that will be able to drop information in this confused traffic, and people will be able to make out of what you're saying? That was exactly the challenge we faced about 10 years ago, but now a lot has changed. Night strategy had essentially dealt with the issues. We need to use this strategy to create awareness, build citizens' trust, broaden that engagement, institutional and corporate buy-in, and impact that 90 is celebrating as at now, where because of the kind of robust information we've been able to prosecute in the communication strategy. And finally, target audience we have dealt with essentially in the strategy. When 90 strategic plan within the 90 strategic strategy, the two documents must go together. Our strategic plan emphasizes regular reporting, regulation, institutional stakeholders, multi-stakeholders, and communication and organization. And we're able to align our communication strategy to be able to pursue these key areas. I do think that slide is just what I need now. And this platform, if you give me just 1 minute, because this is peculiar to Eiti. Through strategy, we've been able to create a special media platform. Drop one information, it goes around the country. And now it's a country of over 170 million people, over 150 different languages, so complex and diverse. But with this media group we have created, an initiative for transparency and extractive industries, where to reach Nigerians at the touch of a button. The CEOs, we have a civil society steering committee with all the coalitions in the civil society below this group. And with one, we're able to reach all the civil society members. And then we are trying to create a separate forum to companies. We have a forum to reach all the donors and monetary agencies that are supporting our work. Members of the legislature, we're also working to create similar platform, because the one we have done with the media and civil society are very effective. Last, The last. Well, I'm done. If you look at that picture, communicate a lot with pictures, infographics, and that show tells you the situation that Nigeria finds itself depending largely on oil and gas, and not much is being done about mining. You could see a cow that is eating from the tree, which is oil, and all the small cows are bred directly from the big cow. The small cows belong to various federating units, take up funds from the federal government. The government is the big cow, the small cow is the local governments and states that depend on nothing else from oil. Our emphasis has been that our reports should change this mentality. Nigeria should diversify its economy, deal with solid minerals and mining, and to generate revenues from taxes and services. I'd like to thank you. I'm sorry for spending more time than required.
Thank you, Dr. Orji, and thank you for the imagery. We all know that images can be very important in communication. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Marty. Now we would like to open up the floor to any questions, any comments, any tips that you would like to share with your colleagues, because this is also a platform for sharing best practices. I try that have worked particularly well. I see we have one question in the chat box. Don't hesitate, you click on the hand icon and you can raise your hand, or you can type your question directly into the chat box. So I think we have Asri from Indonesia. If you unmute your mic, you can ask your question directly to the group.
Hello?
Yes, clearly.
I want to ask first how to grab community around mining as our audience that really have access to signal and electricity. Is it possible?
If I understand correctly, you're asking about communications to persons who do not have access to electricity, for example, or to internet connection. So I don't know, Dr. Orji, maybe you could first response, and anyone please feel free to jump in.
Get that question clearly, please. I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sorry, it was how you change your communication strategies to persons and populations where there's limited access to electricity or an internet network. Of course, your communications to those populations would be slightly different from the social media tools, for example. It might involve radio. I don't know if you have any practices from Nigeria that you would like to share with us.
Thank you very much. We have, that's why I was speaking about the, apart from the traditional media, which we use effectively, radio at the subnational level, and television. Radio time is much more effective in kind of situation. But beyond that, we use town unions in the cities. We use traditional rulers. We use opinion leaders, faith organizations like the churches, mosques, and whose opinion count very well. And these individuals, we work closely with the opinion leaders under civil society, professional associations, with town unions, and much more. So this is very effective. Faith nations, churches, and mosques, we work with their leaders, and sometimes we use town hall meetings in the communities that are very important to our communication. We have similar challenges here in Nigeria as well.
Any other questions? I see here we have Mongolia, we have Albania, Sierra Leone, Liberia. I see that you have a question. Would you like to ask it directly to Orji?
Dr. Orji, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Orji, thank you for your presentation. I just had a quick question to see if you, in communications work, do you reach out to news aggregating websites or data aggregators online to explore ways to increase the chances of these websites picking up the communications work that NEITI does and ultimately expand the dissemination online?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that your question is very key, very important. It's one of the areas I enjoyed very, very well, the presentation by my colleague on the social media. Our social media desk is right behind me here. There are a lot we've just learned from her presentation. We are not very as robust and effective as we be on social media. One reason being that we considered exactly what the last speaker addressed about challenges of electricity, challenges of little and that kind of population that we deal with. So the oil and gas issue in Nigeria is more of the issue of the elites and the high and mighty in society. Governments and the oil companies and more. So we choose the kind of influence that will be able to start the binding by this kind of people. So our social media is not as high as our other channels of communication. We are just building up. With the support of the GIZ and the World Bank, developing, strengthening our social media to cover that you respect. Option I just had now from the World Bank was quite engaging. So that's one of our challenges. Thank you very much.
So we have a question from Judith Wilson from the US EITI. But before I ask Judith to intervene, I just wanted to let you know that Nima has kindly suggested we can take the webinar for an additional 10 minutes. So if you have any questions and so, we can continue to ask them till 10 past the hour. Okay.
Good morning, everybody. It was more of a comment that I had that in the U.S. we identified the lack of a social media strategy as really a high risk for our data portal that we're using to convey our EITI information. And so this past summer, we took on two interns from universities. One was a Native American student at a Native American university, and another was a student from the University of Alaska. And we asked them from their student perspective how they would convey through social media information about our US EITI. And they spent the summer developing a social media communication strategy for us and focused on sharing information to roll out our first annual EITI report. Presented that to our multi-stakeholder group implementation outreach and communication subcommittee to have them understand the social media strategy that we were planning and to get their approval to move forward with it. So we're only just beginning, but I was very impressed with both presentations, and I think it's a lot of valuable information and very important to pay attention to.
Judith. I'm just going to let Arti come in before we take a question from Catherine from Tanzania.
Sure. I just wanted to first address, before I forget, the question on news aggregator sites, and just want to point out that it is very important to be seen on those, but also news aggregator sites, I think, as far as I understand, the more your source puts out news, the more frequently you put out news, the more a search engine sort of pulls that stuff together. So I think it also has to do with the frequency of posting content, and that's another thing that you should keep in mind, that your content is only as good as it was yesterday. Today, a bunch of other people are putting out new stuff. So always think of new engaging content to refresh your your social media channel, your website, whatever it is, because this is when people, search engines actually, as they crawl, they pull content because you date them and you tag them and it pulls stuff like that. And Judith, you're so right. Social media, I mean, we have found at the bank here that it really is, there's no way around that. We are on social media. We are on several social media channels, and we find that with simply more we devote resources to it, the less we feel like we're doing, because there's just so much to be done out there, and so many people on it all the time engaging with their constituents, with their stakeholders, that yes, it is. If you weren't doing anything else, if you could not spend time or money on anything else, I would highly recommend thinking about going social with your outreach.
Thanks. Catherine from Tanzania.
My question goes to Dr. Orji. They have a monitoring and evaluation process for their seek to measure the work of how they've achieved their communication strategy. But my question is, if you can share with us any quick methods maybe they are using for getting feedback, especially getting feedback from the information that they disseminate, especially from their home meetings. I'm not talking about the social media. I know probably that can be easy to get the feedback from the audience, but I'm talking of the maybe face-to-face meetings, workshops, and the town hall meetings. If there's any quick method of getting the feedback.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. It's nice to hear from you. We established feedback mechanisms through some channels that we have in the media. If it's a town hall meeting, the contacts that we use to reach the town unions usually very effective. Also, the same channel for feedback, and things are usually very open, interactive, in a way that you are able to exactly where the opinion of the people are, even at the point of interaction. That is, the larger media, we document every day outings. We're able to track the media press conferences, media references. We're also able to track, to review each stakeholders meeting with content, to track the recordings and find out exactly the issue we need to deal with. And we get those people through the relevant platforms we have created. If it's the civil society, the society steering committee is a one-bus stop from which we reach the civil society. The civil society steering committee is made up of all the major coalitions that are working in the extractive industry, working on HI. If it's there, we also send in the same information through media on active industries, a specialized media group that have also established that covers the key sectors of the media, electronic, press, and even the social media. If the companies, the government and the companies, we have a platform also created by communication strategy we call the Interministerial Tax Team. The IMTT meets in the Ministerial Tax Team. Tax team is made up of all the major government agencies that are covered by our process, and there's also key companies. Issues. We create opportunity for all these agencies to meet and then to table these issues in terms of response to the concerns. For the company, we have what we call the OPTS, Oil Producing Trade Section of the Chamber of Commerce. All the major oil companies are present. Very robust media units. We engage directly with them. We relate with them. They have issues across to us through this channel, and we have to also attend their meetings and print firsthand the major problems, and each way think they need some enlightenment. So the companies will have a channel, for governments, and companies will have a robust media channel. For the civil society, and for the media we have. It is the National Assembly, which is like the legislature. We work closely with the relevant committees that are working directly on our process. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Oji. I would also take this opportunity to emphasize how important national ownership of the EITI process is, making the EITI relevant to the citizens. It has to be relevant to Mongolia, it has to be relevant to your country. Communications obviously should be two-way, and capturing the feedback from these road shows or town halls is very important. And one tool that you can use to communicate the feedback that you receive during these workshops and so is your annual activity report, which ideally should aim to capture the impact of the EITI in your country. Not a list of activities, but it is how you have impacted or changed or informed in your country. So I can have a question from Sierra Leone, Conte, and then from Samson. So Conte, Mohammed. We're going to pass the mic Samson.
Hello?
Samson.
Are you getting me? Yes. My question is actually a follow-up to the question that Catherine asked on the fight for the communication, and it's Dr. Oji. What I want to know is, how do you measure that the information you're getting out there is being used by the community or by the public and is producing results? How do you measure that?
Dr. Oji?
Thank you very much, Samson. And one way we were able to measure that is by the ability of the communities to even raise issues related with our report. If we publish a report, we are able to reach the communities through town hall meetings to be able to explain the issues that affect them in our report. And we do not get responses in terms of how these reports affect agitation for improved standard of living or some kind of environmental issues or compatibility. Able to know that probably the message did not sing, but we use the national, the radio edition, the radio in the local communities effectively. So there are some of the community leaders come to the stations either to probably accuse Eiti of side with the government or making some kind of allegations. The discussion is going on. But if we get feedback from them, we will begin to know that our communication did not really reach them. But most times, as soon as our presentations are made, we will get in delegations that visit our office to make one form of demand or the other. And the kind of audit we did last, physical allocation and statutory disbursement audit, to address how revenues are utilized in that produce the natural resources. The kind of report we got from communities, it showed us that they were interested in our report. Many of them were interested to find out what our terms of reference, the scope of the audit, what the areas it's supposed to cover, and many of them thought it was necessary that we expanded the scope. And many of them, after the report was published, have been coming to demand copies of the report. And this is that we hear that the communities make in trying to use the report to challenge the national governments impression that they find our work much useful. How can you discuss any issue in oil, gas, or mining, especially in gas in Nigeria, without reference to what the report said? Some the reports are even quoted out of context, but that is quoted at all gives us the impression that our communication is getting down to those levels of government.
Thank you, Dr. Oji. Mohammed, colleague from Sierra Leone, I don't know if we can hear. Yes,
yeah,
we can hear.
Yeah, hello everybody. My question is, how often do you use the traditional media in areas where we have few people who often use the traditional, who often use social media? Because for Sierra Leone, the mainstream media is like you have the radio, the television, and newspapers. But in some parts of the rural areas, you also have radio stations like community radio stations. But the social media is also like gradually booming among those areas. So how do you effectively utilize the social media to target people, in the rural areas?
But probably I don't know if Arti or Kelly would like to come in on social media, or Dr. Oji, and then we will probably look to close the round. I don't think we have any other questions coming in.
Jimla, I can sort of pitch on reconcile, where there's enough social media pickup to areas in the country where there is actually social media pickup. So there's a lot of things that you can do, a lot of products that you can have that you can use effectively in both areas. For instance, if you're doing a radio piece, we've done now is we've managed to put so basically audio interviews on this platform called SoundCloud, which basically only hosts audio. So it's like it's a repository of it's an audio version of YouTube. So whatever you put out on radio as an interview or as a piece, you can always put on SoundCloud and tweet a link to that or put it on your Facebook. The same with stories, with TV pieces, for instance. People watch TV. I see, at least in India, a lot of people in rural areas get together and watch TV. It's a community practice. It's how people interact, they bond, they share. So that you put on YouTube, you can always repurpose and give to TV stations to be aired on a particular segment. So there are ways to use the same product in different ways, and I would encourage you to experiment with that.
This is Kelly. That I would just add. I'm not sure if I'm responding to the last question or if it was the one before this. You measure your reach and communications to traditional groups, like through community outreach and everything. And this is a very, very basic tool, but it's something that we use at the World Bank, and I've often used too in work that I've done in areas in Peru and other countries. Is feedback after community meetings or outreach through just surveys. I know some communities might not be as keen to participate in that as others, but I think it's a good strategy just to always think before any person-to-person sort of outreach meeting in options that you could potentially ask people in a written format if those communities are willing to use that sort of vehicle, if they are it, if they do want to write on a written questionnaire and collect that afterwards. Do that in all the World Bank events. Clearly, those are audiences that are more receptive to that. But if you can do that, we really encourage so that you can get anonymous feedback from those traditional outreach methods as well.
Thank you, Arti. Dr. Oji, do you have any last comments to add before we close the webinar?
Yeah, it's just I think I would like to thank the last two speakers. They essentially captured some of our concerns, because also tracking the impact of information engagements in the rural communities is also a huge challenge. We just commissioned 2 independent surveys right now. One is on public perception survey, which we are conducting independently with the support of Oxfam and members of the civil society. To deal essentially with tracking our media outreach and perception in the rural communities. We're doing the impact assessment survey go in the same direction. So, except until these empirical surveys are conducted and concluded, we'll be unable to be very certain of them. But all channels that we use are not very easy to really measurable. The gate and then reports we get from committees through their representatives either in the media or in the legislature. We think that these 2 surveys will help us to be much more empirical in assessment and analysis. But quickly, I don't know whether I may have opportunity of speaking again. But I to really think that this forum is something that needs to be sustained. We've learned a lot from my colleague that presented on the social media, and I'm wondering if the presentation will also be made available on this platform for us as a department to also look at it. Thank you very much.
The presentations will be made available on the World Bank Community of Practice, EITI Community of Practice. I would just call on Kim Savadogo, our intern at the EITI International Secretariat, who is with us from the Burkina Faso National Secretariat, to give some closing remarks.
Thank you, Gisela. Well, I'd like to thank all your willingness to take part in this webinar for your rich contributions for our question that have helped to make live action around the 2 presentations. To thanks particularly Mrs. Kelly and Mrs. Arti from the World Bank, from ITI National Secretary of Nigeria, to all to this webinar. This is call and more understanding on the fact that communication provides an important bridge between transparency and accountability. The ITI reports must be disseminated and public and better governance of the and mining sectors. Us to share our experiences and also to put on the table our concern regarding the management of social media as the perception of EITI communication strategies to supplementation of the EITI countries. And your motivation throughout discussion, how this webinar is necessary for us, for communication measures that we and our countries. We will organize another webinar on this for our Francophone colleagues. On English. Please feel free to send your suggestion to Gisela. Thank you and talk to you next time. And bye.
Continue the conversations on YAMA as well as the community of practice. Take care.
Thank you.
It's done.